What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Sports Wars. I'm your observant lineman, Uche Waneri, and today, with the start of the free agency period in the NFL, it seems as if football is starting to get into the early stages of the new NFL season. But I want to take a step back. Let's talk about one of the big events that just recently passed with the ratification of the 2020 NFL Collective Bargaining Agreement. Now, what is the Collective Bargaining Agreement, you ask? Well, let's take a look. The NFL Collective Bargaining Agreement is a labor agreement which reflects the results of collective bargaining negotiations between the National Football League's Player Association and the National Football League team owners. Now, as you all know, this has been in the news for quite a while as the NFL and the NFLPA have been in discussions. Now, there are some significant changes that have been made in this contract already, but there are also some things that people don't know about that are really affecting what players who retire from the NFL after a certain amount of time will be facing in terms of benefits and in terms of their ability to apply for disability from the NFL. And those are the things that I really want to focus on, because while they did ratify the CBA, and there has been some upside to some of the things that are in the CBA, there are also some red flags that people have kind of ignored. And I feel like, from my perspective at least, as a player who's retired, you want to make sure that your benefit situation is probably as shored up as it could possibly be, even if you were a current player, because once you finish, which could be any day, then you will need to start the process of figuring out what your benefits are and figuring out how you can best get them. Now, with the NFL CBA, from what I was able to deduct from what's happening with the benefits, there has been a significant change that will affect players when they retire greatly. The NFL owners have decided that they are going to scale back the amount of money that is set up for players in their benefit accounts once they retire from the league. Now, what does that mean? Let's take a look. Article 60, Section 2 is as follows. Total and permanent benefits, TNP, shall be reduced to the following annual amounts to be paid in equal monthly installments unless later agreed to by the parties in a subsequent agreement. For an active player, your annual benefits for your total and permanent disability are $48,000. Inactive football players, $48,000. Inactive A, another $48,000, and for inactive B, $40,000 is flat. Now, this is in direct contrast to what is already in place with the 2011 CBA, which ends next season. The active player in football right now gets $250,000 in total and permanent disability benefits. An active non-football gets $150,000, an inactive gets $120,000, and an inactive B gets $50,000. Now, all of these numbers were actually increased effective January 1st of 2016. So those have gone up about $15,000 for each group. But what you're seeing here is a scale back of almost $200,000. But for new players who are playing in the NFL right now, who have not retired, their total and permanent disability yearly payment will be $200,000 less than what we're currently receiving. Because in a situation like this, if you're looking in an agreement, this is something that is directly against your interests as a player when you're looking at it from a long game standpoint. This is long ball, and as a player, you want to secure your future just as much as you want to secure your present. And as somebody who is currently retired and currently deals with a multitude of physical pain that is a direct result of my time as a football player, I can tell you firsthand that this situation would be unacceptable to anyone who's truly negotiating in the best interests of the players they represent. And for the NFLPA to allow something like this to be pushed through as an actual term for agreement is egregious, in my opinion. Now let's look at Article 60, Section 6. And in this part of the CBA, this is another big blow to the benefits of players after they get done playing football. Social Security is something that the federal government allows for people to apply for based on disability. So if you wanted to go in and say, hey, I'm disabled, I'm not able to work because of an injury that I sustained during my career, they would put me through a process to determine whether or not my level of disability would rise up to a certain marker that would then allow me to be classified as someone who is unable to work naturally. And with that, you are guaranteed certain benefits because of that classification by the federal government. That is something that the NFL has had to honor in the 2011 CBA, that if players are deemed to be disabled through Social Security, then they are automatically entered in and given their total and permanent disability benefits at the full level of benefit payouts. That way, they're able to continue on to handle any kind of hospital expenses they have and be able to have some kind of living income, some type of livable income that they can live off of. And for many players, these are guys who played back in the 80s, played back in the 90s, who didn't make the kind of money that you're seeing in the NFL right now. But let's look at Section 6 and let's read out exactly what it says regarding Social Security disability and the CBA. Section 6 says, the party shall amend Section 3.2 of the disability plan by adding a subsection 3.2c to state that as of April 1st, 2024, a Social Security determination of disability does not establish a player's eligibility for benefits under this disability plan. What does that mean? That means that the NFL will no longer honor what the federal government deems to be disability. And why would the NFL do this when it's clear that players who have played long careers and have been vested to get their retirement and to get their benefits, doesn't really seem like there's really any kind of real reason as to why the NFLPA would allow the NFL to push out the acceptance of Social Security disability designations by the federal government and replacing them with something different. That is completely counterproductive to what people are experiencing as athletes who have played a long career and have done a lot of damage to their body. When we're done with our career and we're no longer in the field of football, our bodies will still have the effects of football within them. And in the situation like this, the NFLPA once again is not looking out for the benefit of the players by allowing the NFL to scale back a system that had been consistently allowing players to see the full force of their benefits without having to look for alternative ways to get money to take care of hospital bills, to take care of medications, to take care of maintenance, and to also help them take care of their families. This is another unacceptable scale back that the NFLPA has allowed. But why did they allow this? Why did they allow the owners to do this kind of thing and to push them into a corner, forcing them to take less money for players once their career is over, even though they're getting a smidgen in the grand scheme of things of money back in way of their yearly salary from the owners, which, to them is really peanuts. The fact of the matter here is when you add a game to the season for the NFL, that is hundreds of millions of dollars potentially that will be gained. When you add a playoff game, that's another hundreds of millions of dollars around the league that can be gained and can be profited from for the NFL owners. They decided to dip into the post-career benefits of players who will surely face physical challenges and mental challenges moving forward once their careers are over. They have dipped into that pot, taken money out to try and compensate for the salary bump that they're giving players right here, right now. To me, this is something that's easy enough to see and should have been easy enough to negotiate that shouldn't be allowed to happen. If they're no longer going to be accepting the federal government's designation of a disabled player as an automatic qualifier for the total and permanent disability benefit, then how are they planning on determining who is disabled? That is a big question that a lot of players should have been asking when they looked through this CBA. And the answer to it is they're going to create their own little council that is going to decide whether or not a player is truly disabled. And we all know if you leave it in the hands of the owners, whether it be the placebo third-party designee or not, there is going to be influence that will surely be in favor of making sure that they accept as little amount of players in the disability, total and permanent disability designation as possible. Because what happens when you are actually given total and permanent disability? You are then going to be paid a significant amount of money on a monthly basis to help you sustain your bills and your health. In Section 5, it says, the bargaining parties shall appoint one person each to the panel and shall jointly appoint the third person to the panel. Any dispute between the bargaining parties over the evaluation process shall be decided by a majority vote of the panel. Effective April 1st, 2024, the whole person evaluation process shall be the basis for determining whether a player is totally and permanently disabled. That just does not make sense. Why would you create a panel of 3 people who are supposedly independent and third party to decide whether or not players are truly disabled after playing football? A guy who has to have a knee replacement, a guy who has to have a shoulder replacement, a guy who has damage from head trauma is obviously a person who is going to be a likely candidate to be accepted as physically disabled when it comes to the guidelines set up by the federal government. But when you have it set in this kind of backdoor counsel from the NFLPA and the NFL owners, where they have discretion to move the goalposts as they see fit to change what the definition of disabled is, all that does is create another situation where players are going to be tied up in red tape and not allowed to see the full benefits of what they earned as a player in the NFL. And for me, somebody who played 7 years on the offensive line, this is just totally unacceptable. As a union, the NFLPA has totally failed their players by allowing them to vote on a system that they were not fully aware was nickel and diming them out of their future and out of the benefits that they will certainly need to help them live a sustainable and healthy life as they move forward decades down the road. They've added 2 games to the football season with little to no real compensation to make up for that. They've taken hundreds of thousands of dollars away from the disability benefits of NFL players who, while they may be young now and strong, will get older, and the damage and trauma that the sport does to your body over time will begin to rear its head. And for players who may be in different financial situations than others, they may not be able to handle that kind of a task. And with the disability benefits being cut the way they're being cut, these guys aren't going to have the kind of money that's going to be able to sustain them in any medical need or emergency situations that come up because of the injuries they've received as football players. When the CBA was enacted for me as a player back in 2010, it was a completely confusing and incoherent situation as things got down to crunch time. A lot of players did not want to go back to work. A lot of players looked at the situation and said, we want more in way of our benefits. We want more in way of how we can take care of ourselves after football. We want lifetime healthcare insurance. We don't have that now. Nobody's asking these guys to set up a golden parachute for players once they're done playing ball. We made a good living as football players in and of itself, but at the same time, our benefits based on the danger and the risks that we put ourselves in and the amount of revenue that this league builds year in and year out, it only makes sense that you take care of the guys who have sacrificed their bodies for 100 years to make the NFL what it is. And for the NFLPA to be too blind to see that and to be too blind to force that issue to make sure that players are taken care of for the rest of their lives from a health standpoint is nothing short of disgusting, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments down below. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe to Sports Wars. I am your observant lineman, Uche Nwaneri. I appreciate you guys for going on this deeper dive into what's really going on with the NFL CBA and how it's going to affect players for decades to come. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.